The city of Anniston was founded in the 1870s as an industrial community for mining iron out of Cheaha Mountain. William Noble and Samuel Tyler owned the Woodstock Iron Company. If you live in Anniston long enough, you'll come across random things here and there called Woodstock something or other. One of the main streets in downtown is Noble Street, named after William Noble. The name Anniston is after Samuel Tyler's wife, Annie. The name means Annie's town. Both of the city founders now rest in Hillside Cemetery at the top of a hill. I used to live across the street, so nearby that William Noble's monument was practically in my front yard. Until 1883, only those who worked for Woodstock Iron Company lived in Anniston, but at this time it became open to the public. People would come and live near mining towns because anywhere people live, there's commerce. People need goods and services, and a new town is the perfect place to establish your own business and put down roots, and many families did just that. The population grew, and in 1917, at the beginning of World War I, the government turned almost 19,000 acres of land into Fort McClellan, primarily an Army base, which brought even more families and businesses into the area. During World War II, the Anniston Army Depot opened, which brought in more employment opportunities. Anniston and the surrounding cities and towns flourished, and it was an ever-growing community to live in and raise a family. Unfortunately, the base closed in the late 90s, and that upset the local economy quite a bit. One good thing about the closure is that the undeveloped land the base was on was turned into what is now the Mountain Longleaf National Wildlife Refuge. Say that 10 times fast. This is in an effort to protect wildlife and plants, particularly the mountain longleaf pine tree. Right now, the rest of the land is being redeveloped after a long environmental remediation. Unfortunately, a lot of people and the land was exposed to radiation and hazardous materials and chemicals while the base was in operation, and all of that had to get cleaned up, and it took about 11 years. Now, most of it is open and ready to be redeveloped. The depot remains open mostly as a storage and maintenance facility for weapons and combat vehicles. For a period of time, it was used to incinerate old chemical weapons, but that ended in 2011. Without the active base and depot there were less employment opportunities, and the local economy still hasn't quite recovered. But hopefully, the land that used to belong to the fort will get bought up and bring some jobs to the area. Additionally, there used to be a plant owned by Monsanto in Anniston. The plant used to be called Solutia. You might have heard of this on the news. It was pumping toxic fumes into the water and air. The chemicals were known to cause cancer and birth defects, and it was a whole thing. In 2002, there was a 60 Minutes expose on it, and after a whole bunch of legal rigmarole, a lot of the residents in the city were financially compensated. I remember this was right before I graduated from high school, and I remember a lot of people getting checks in the mail and talking about what they were going to buy with their Monsanto money. A friend of mine actually used to have a band, and I think it was called Monsanto, but he changed the name to something else. Anyhow, Anniston was never exempt from civil rights issues. In 1961, a bus of freedom riders, activists that protest segregation, were bombed. In 1964, Anniston Hardware, a store owned by Miller Sproul, was bombed because Miller Sproul openly opposed segregation and the KKK. In 1965, a white racist rally was held, and after that, a man named Willie Brewster was shot and killed by Damon Strange, a KKK member who was convicted of the crime. According to census data published in 2010, a little more than half of the population is made up of people of color. But in spite of that, persons of color in the city of Anniston and surrounding areas are treated poorly. And the city is very much still segregated in terms of where people live and spend their time. Meth and opioid addiction is a big problem in Anniston. According to FBI data published in 2016, it is one of the most violent cities in the U.S. 4 Alabama cities made that list. The list contains 30 cities, and 4 of those cities were Alabama cities. So let's go back a little bit in time after all that history lesson that nobody but me wanted. Anniston was called the model city because of the common sense grid downtown that downtown was built on during the 19th century. The grid keeps traffic from getting too backed up, and the layout of the streets keeps people from getting lost. After having lived, visited, and gotten lost all over the U.S. now, I can honestly say that the grid is my favorite thing about the city of Anniston. The buildings downtown were built in a slowly disappearing Art Deco style. It's really hard to find original Art Deco art and architecture in some areas because when it went out of fashion, it went way out of fashion. And a lot of the art and architecture in Art Deco style was destroyed. Several years ago, some people tried to restore it and preserve the art and architecture that remains, but unfortunately the budget just isn't there. Somebody with a loud vehicle drove down my road. Okay, lost my place, I lost my place again. The budget just wasn't there. If you are ever in Anniston, please visit the Historic District, the Peerless, Classic on Noble, the Rabbit Hutch, all good places to visit. The Spirit of Anniston Main Street program is a nonprofit that raises money to preserve and restore downtown. I used to belong to a theater company, and every year at Christmas, the Spirit of Anniston got us to go around caroling every weekend at all the downtown businesses to bring people to downtown, and it was so fun, and it was one of my favorite memories. Another of my favorite memories is the biggest chair in the United States. Actually, the biggest office chair in the United States, which is located in downtown Anniston. It used to be the world's largest chair, but it no longer holds that record. The biggest chair is now in Spain, but the one in Anniston is still the biggest office chair in the U.S. It used to be pink, but it's now brown and hosts an ad for a furniture store. If you want, you can look it up online. There are a lot of pictures, especially on Atlas Obscura. When I was little, my daughter used to drive past it on the way to Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie is now closed, and I asked him whose chair it was. He told me the chair belonged to the Jolly Green Giant. And when we got inside the Winn-Dixie, there used to be these big illustrations of fruits and vegetables on the wall, and he told me that those were for the Jolly Green Giant too. I didn't know. I was little. I didn't know that the Jolly Green Giant was just a guy on the commercial for Green Giant veggies. I thought that he was the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk, and for many years, longer than I should have, I believed that the big chair was like the city's tribute to Jack and the Beanstalk, and it was like a statue for the Jack and the Beanstalk giant. I don't know where I had that idea, but that was what I thought that the statue was. Now you probably know a lot more than you ever wanted to about Anniston. After this break, we will get into the hotel and its history, and maybe we will meet a ghost or two.